Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we are not just talking about basketball. We're talking about the absolute pinnacle of individual achievement in the sport. We're looking at the award that defines legacies, the trophy that separates the greats from, well, the immortals.
It really is.
We are talking, of course, about the NBA Most Valuable Player Award.
It's the singular honor. It really shapes how we remember the history of the league. You can win scoring titles, you can make all-star teams, sure.
Right.
But when you look back at the eras of the NBA, you tend to define them by who was holding that MVP trophy.
Yes.
It's the shorthand for greatness.
It is. It's the King of the Hill Award.
Yeah.
And I think what's so cool about the stack of research we have today is that it's not just a list of names. I mean, sure, we're going to talk about Jordan and LeBron and Kareem.
Of course.
How can you not? But we're also going to get into the machinery of it all, how the voting works, how it's changed over the years.
The mechanics are fascinating.
Right. From players voting to media voting, and even the hardware itself has a story.
That's right. And we have to, acknowledge the current context we're living in. As of the 2024-25 season, the man sitting on that throne is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of the Oklahoma City Thunder.
SGA. I mean, the timeline has officially moved into a new era. It's just fascinating to see him on that list now.
It really is.
But before we get to the modern day, we have a mission here. We need to unpack the history, the controversies, and there are controversies.
There are definitely controversies.
And the changing rules, because, and this is something I didn't fully realize until I looked at the notes, the criteria for winning haven't always been the same.
No, not at all. The very definition of value has shifted. The people deciding that value has shifted.
And now eligibility itself has shifted.
Exactly. And recently, even the eligibility requirements have shifted with this new 65-game rule.
Which we absolutely will get to, because that is a game changer, literally.
It is.
But let's start with the basics. If you win the MVP today, like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander just did, what are you actually holding? Because for a long time, it was the Maurice Podoloff Trophy.
Right.
But that's not the case anymore, is it?
It is not. As of the 2022-23 season, the league made a pretty significant branding change. The MVP now receives the Michael Jordan Trophy.
Which, let's be honest, that just feels appropriate.
It seems obvious in retrospect.
I mean, naming the MVP trophy after a 5-time winner seems like a complete no-brainer. But walk me through the logic here. Why ditch Podoloff? Was there, some kind of beef with the old commissioner?
It wasn't so much beef as it was a realignment of symbols. Maurice Podoloff was the first commissioner of the NBA. Well, technically, his title was president back then.
Right.
He served from 1946 until 1963. He was an administrator. He was a suit.
Right.
He was crucial for the league's survival, don't get me wrong, but he didn't exactly represent on-court excellence.
Right. It's a bit like winning the Employee of the Month award and getting a trophy shaped like the HR director.
That is a harsh, but I'd say pretty accurate analogy.
So the league decided to move his name.
They did. So the league decided to move Podoloff's name. They didn't erase him. They just moved him to a trophy that fits his role a lot better. The Maurice Podoloff Trophy is now given to the team with the best regular season record.
Okay, let's unpack that for a second. That actually makes a ton of sense.
It does, right?
The commissioner, the administrator, is now associated with team success, the organizational structure, the standings.
The collective achievement.
And the MVP, the individual brilliance, is named after the guy who arguably defined individual brilliance, Michael Jordan.
Exactly. It cleanly separates the administrative achievement from the athletic achievement.
I like that. But, the hardware is just the symbol. The real machinery of glory and where all the arguments happen is the voting process.
Oh, absolutely.
And this is where the history gets really surprising for people who assume it's always been sports writers sitting in a room making the pick.
And that's a huge misconception.
Oh, this blew my mind when I was digging into the sources. I just assumed it was always the media. The beat writers, the columnists, the talking heads.
Right.
But you're telling me that back in the day, the players actually voted for the MVP.
That is correct. From the inception of the award in the 1955-56 season, all the way until the 1979-80 season, the MVP was selected by a vote of the NBA players.
Whoa, wait. Pause on that. Just imagine the psychology of that for a second. You're playing against Bill Russell or Wilt Chamberlain. They are physically beating you up in the paint, elbowing you, dunking on you.
Humiliating you on a nightly basis.
And then at the end of the year, you have to take a piece of paper and write down, yeah, that guy who embarrassed me is the best.
It adds a layer of peer respect that is really unique, but also a layer of complex interpersonal dynamics. When you look at those early winners, Bob Pettit, Bill Russell, Wilt, they were being crowned by the men they competed against every single night.
So it's the ultimate sign of respect.
There's a very strong argument to be made that the player vote is the purest form of validation. They know who is truly unstoppable because they are the ones trying and failing to stop them.
But isn't there a huge downside to that? I mean, players are human. They hold grudges. They have friends on other teams. They might vote for their buddy.
Oh, absolutely. And that is the fascinating friction of that era. Take the classic Bill Russell versus Wilt Chamberlain debate.
The ultimate rivalry.
Wilt Chamberlain had the numbers. I mean, the insane numbers. He was averaging 50 points a game in one season. He was a statistical alien.
50?
But Bill Russell kept winning the MVPs. Why?
Because the players voted.
Because the players voted. And the players clearly respected Russell's winning impact, his defense, his leadership. Or, perhaps they simply liked him more than the aloof, sometimes difficult Wilt.
So the player vote era might have actually been the popularity contest era, or maybe the who do I hate losing to the least era.
In a way, yes, or at least the respect contest. Players voted for the guy they feared, or the guy who made his teammates better. They didn't care as much about raw box score numbers because, well, they didn't have advanced analytics back then.
They went by feel, by who dominated them.
They went by feel, but then in the 1980-81 season, the league flipped the script completely.
So why the change? I mean, if the player vote was the purest form of respect, why hand it over to the media? What was the logic?
The league shifted the decision-making power to a panel of sports writers and broadcasters from across the United States and Canada. The official rationale, the party line, was to bring more objectivity to the process.
Objectivity.
The idea was that the media watches all the games, they aren't on the court getting elbowed, and they don't have personal beefs with the players in the locker room.
But come on, objectivity. The media has just as many biases as the players. They're just different kinds of biases.
Precisely. And this is a crucial distinction that you have to understand. When the vote shifted to the media in 1980, we arguably saw the birth of what I call the narrative MVP.
The narrative MVP, I love that. Explain that.
Suddenly, being the best player wasn't always enough. You needed a compelling season-long arc. You needed a story. We traded the fear factor of the players for the editorial appeal of the writers.
That explains so much about the 80s and 90s. The writers love a good story. Michael Jordan is ascending. Charles Barkley is redeeming himself in Phoenix. Karl Malone is finally due for one.
Exactly. The media vote also introduced the concept of voter fatigue.
Oh, that's a huge one.
Writers get bored writing the same headline every year. Players might not get bored of admitting Jordan's the best, but a writer, they want a new angle. This shift fundamentally changed who won the awards in certain years.
It's the LeBron problem of the 2010s. He was probably the best player for a decade straight, but he didn't win 10 straight MVPs.
He couldn't. The voters would have staged a revolt.
So for the last 40-plus years, it's been the media controlling the narrative and the award. But then, the internet age happens, the fans want it in.
And the league eventually threw them a bone.
A very small bone.
A tiny one. Starting in 2010, the process evolved again, just slightly. Fans got a voice. They get to cast one collective ballot through online voting.
Hold on. One ballot. Like one singular vote out of 100 and something.
Just one. The fan vote is tallied up, and it counts as a single ballot in the final count. It can act as a tiebreaker or just one vote among the panel. It's essentially a rounding error in the grand scheme of things.
That feels like a total marketing gimmick. Your voice matters. Well, about 1% of it matters.
It was absolutely a nod to the growing engagement of the fan base and the rise of social media. It allows the league to say the fans are involved without actually letting, the internet trolls decide who the MVP is.
Can you imagine if it was 100% fan vote? We'd have some very, very strange MVPs.
Alex Caruso would have 3 MVPs by now.
We'd probably have a meme player winning MVP every single year. So, okay, we have this panel of writers and broadcasters plus this token fan vote, but how do they actually tally it up?
Right.
Because I think a lot of people just imagine everyone writes down one name and whoever has the most votes wins. But it's much more nuanced than that, right?
Much more nuanced. And this is where the math nerds get excited, because it's a weighted point system. Every voter doesn't just pick a winner. They have to rank their top 5. And the order matters immensely.
Okay, break down the math for us. Why does being second or third on a ballot matter so much?
So a first-place vote is worth 10 points. That's the gold standard. But a second-place vote is still worth a hefty 7 points. Third place gets you 5 points, fourth gets 3 points, and fifth place gets 1 point.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting then. Let's run a little simulation in our heads.
Okay.
You could theoretically have a player, let's call him player A, who is super polarizing. Maybe he puts up huge stats, but people don't like his style. Half the voters think he's the best and give him a first-place vote.
Right, 50 first-place votes.
But the other half of the voters can't stand him and leave him off their ballot entirely. So he gets 0 points from them.
Correct. And then you have player B. Maybe player B isn't anyone's absolute favorite. Maybe he's a little boring, but he's fundamentally solid.
Mr. Reliable.
Mr. Reliable. And every single voter respects him enough to put him second or third on their ballot.
So he racks up a ton of 7-point and 5-point votes.
In that scenario, player B could actually win the award without having nearly as many first-place votes as player A.
Yeah.
His point total would be higher.
So the system rewards consensus. It actively protects against polarization.
Absolutely. It ensures that the MVP is someone the entire basketball world generally agrees is elite, rather than someone who just has a fervent but small cult following. The winner is the player with the highest total points. It forces the voters to look at the whole picture, not just their favorite highlight reel.
It's a system designed to find the player who is undeniably valuable across the board. I get it. So that's the machinery. We know how the votes are cast and counted. Now, let's talk about the Titans, the guys who mastered this system year after year.
The legends.
When we look at the history books, who is the undisputed king of MVPs?
Standing alone at the top of the mountain is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He has won the award a record 6 times.
6 times. That's almost hard to comprehend. That's essentially a decade of dominance. And think about the era he did it in, the 1970s.
The 70s were a really turbulent time for the NBA. The league was struggling with drug scandals, tape-delayed finals, a merger with the ABA. It was chaotic.
And Kareem was the constant.
In the midst of all that chaos, Kareem was the constant. He won 3 with the Milwaukee Bucks and 3 more with the Los Angeles Lakers.
It's wild to think he split them between 2 teams like that. Usually you associate an MVP run with one specific dynasty.
It just highlights his incredible longevity and the fact that his signature shot, the skyhook, it was simply unsolvable. It didn't matter what jersey he wore, you couldn't stop it.
That's amazing. And here is a nugget I found that just speaks to the prestige of this award.
Go on.
Every single eligible player who has won the MVP award has been inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame.
That's a 100% hit rate.
It's a 100% hit rate. If you win MVP, you are a Hall of Famer, period.
Oh.
Obviously not counting active players who aren't eligible yet.
It's the ultimate credential.
So Kareem has 6. Who's in the tier just below him? Who's chasing him?
Just below him, we have the Five Timers Club, which has 2 very exclusive members, Bill Russell and Michael Jordan.
The GOATs. Bill Russell, 5 MVPs. And remember, as we just discussed, those were player votes.
Right.
His peers, the guys he was battling, looked at him and said, "You are the best 5 separate times." That just carries a different weight than Jordan's 5, doesn't it?
It does. It really does.
Yeah.
Jordan's 5 all came in the media era. So Jordan had to battle not just opposing defenses, but that Jordan fatigue we talked about.
The narrative.
There were years like when Charles Barkley won in 1993 or Karl Malone in 1997 where you could easily argue Jordan was still the best player on the planet, but the writers wanted to spread the wealth.
They wanted a new story.
Russell didn't have to deal with that narrative fatigue as much because the players just voted for who won and they kept picking him.
It's the LeBron problem, too. We get bored of sustained greatness. Speaking of LeBron, he's in the next tier down, right?
Right. Just below them, you have the 4 timers. Wilt Chamberlain and LeBron James.
That is just incredible company. I mean, look at those names. Kareem, Russell, Jordan, Wilt, LeBron. That's essentially the Mount Rushmore debate right there in the MVP standing.
It is. The award winners list is basically the definitive list of the greatest to ever play. And there is a specific statistical feat that only 2 of those men accomplished. We can call it the efficiency of dominance.
Ooh, I like that. What is it?
Only Bill Russell and LeBron James have managed to win the award 4 times in a 5-season span.
Whoa. 4 out of 5 years. That's suffocating. That basically means for half a decade, nobody else really had a chance.
Not really.
The league was just living in their world.
Exactly. It speaks to a specific era where the gravity of the entire sport revolved around that one player. For Russell, it was the mid-60s with the Celtics dynasty. For LeBron, it was that Miami Heat and late Cleveland era where he physically peaked.
Just total domination. Now, speaking of doing things in a row, let's talk about the three-peat. Because winning back-to-back is hard enough. Winning 3 years in a row seems basically impossible in the modern NBA.
It has proven to be incredibly difficult. Only 3 players in the entire history of the league have won 3 consecutive MVPs.
3 players. Who are they?
Bill Russell, again. Wilt Chamberlain, his great rival. And the last one to do it, Larry Bird.
Larry legend. In the mid-'80s. That was 84, 85, 86.
And think about the context of that. Magic Johnson was in the league and at his peak. Jordan had just arrived. Kareem was still playing at a high level. And Larry Bird won 3 straight against that level of competition.
And since then, nobody.
Since Bird, no one has managed to secure 3 in a row.
We've had some really close calls recently, though, right? Guys winning 2 straight.
Very close. Giannis Antetokounmpo won back-to-back in 19 and 20 and was right there for a third. And, of course, Nikola Jokić won back-to-back in 21 and 22 and had a massive, massive case for a third before Embiid won it in 23.
So why do you think the three-peat is so hard now? Is it just that the talent level across the league is higher? Or is it something else?
I think it goes back to the media voting and the narrative. To win 3 times in a row now, you have to not just be the best, you have to be significantly better than you were the year before.
You have to keep improving on greatness.
You do. If you just stay great,
Yeah.
the voters get bored. They say, well, we gave it to him last year. His stats are the same. You also have to reinvent yourself to keep their attention.
That makes perfect sense. He's doing the same amazing thing he did last year. Boring. Who's got a better story? Next.
It's a tough hurdle to clear.
Now, let's look at which franchises have the most hardware in their trophy cases. I have a feeling I know who's at the top of this list.
It's the usual suspects. The Boston Celtics lead the pack with 10 total MVP awards won by players on their roster.
Russell and Bird are doing the heavy lifting there, obviously. But who else? Bob Cousy won one, right?
Yes, Bob Cousy won one of the earliest ones, and Dave Cowens won one in the 70s. It just shows the generational excellence of that organization.
And second place has to be their rivals.
Of course. In second place, the Los Angeles Lakers with 8 awards.
That's Kareem, Magic, Shaq, Kobe, a Mount Rushmore of their own.
Then you have the Philadelphia 76ers with 7, thanks to a long history from Wilt and Dr. J to Moses Malone, Allen Iverson, and most recently, Joel Embiid.
And the Bulls.
And the Chicago Bulls with 6-5 from Jordan, of course, and 1 from Derrick Rose.
It really shows that while MVP is an individual award, it tends to cluster around the great dynasties. You need a great organization to put you in a position to win.
That's usually the case.
You can't win MVP if your front office is a complete disaster, usually.
Usually. And that leads us perfectly into the criteria, or rather the unwritten rules of winning, because usually team success is paramount. But there are anomalies, there are heartbreaks, there are these moments where the voters did something completely unexpected.
Yes, this is my favorite part of the research. The what-ifs and the statistical oddities. Let's start with the idea of the unanimous MVP.
Okay.
You would think with guys like Jordan or Shaq or LeBron guys who were so clearly head and shoulders above everyone else in their prime, one of them would have swept the board maybe multiple times. But that's not the case at all.
No, it is shockingly rare. In the entire history of the award, there was only one unanimous MVP, Stephen Curry, in the 2015-16 season.
The year the Warriors won 73 games.
The 73-9 season.
I mean, he completely changed the game that year. He was shooting from 30, 35 feet like it was a layup. It was unreal.
He received every single first-place vote. It had never happened before. The narrative, the stats, and the team success aligned so perfectly that there was literally no contrarian argument to be made. He broke basketball.
He broke it, but we have come agonizingly close on 2 other occasions.
We have. We call this the one-vote short club.
This kills me every time I read about it. 1 vote away from perfection. Who are the members of this unfortunate club?
First, Shaquille O'Neal in the 1999-2000 season. This was arguably the most dominant version of Shaq we ever saw.
The most dominant.
He was destroying backboards, averaging nearly 30 and 14. He was an unstoppable force of nature. He received 120 of 121 first-place votes.
120 out of 121. Okay, I have to ask. We need to name names here. Who is the spoiler? Who looked at 2000 Shaq and said, nah, I'm good?
The single dissenting vote came from Fred Hickman, who was a broadcaster for CNN at the time. And he cast his first-place vote for Allen Iverson.
Allen Iverson. Look, I love AI. The crossover, the culture, everything about him. But in 2000, was he better than Shaq that year?
Statistically. Not even close. Team success. The Lakers won the championship. But Hickman's argument, his rationale, was that Iverson was more valuable to his specific team.
Ah, the semantic argument.
It's the classic trap. His point was that the 76ers would have been the worst team in the league without him, whereas the Lakers still had Kobe Bryant and might have survived without Shaq.
That is the ultimate best player versus most valuable semantic trap. That's just trying to be clever.
It is. And Shaq took it very personally. He held a grudge against Fred Hickman for years over that one vote. He wanted that unanimous history.
I don't blame him. And then it happened again, right, with LeBron.
It did. The 2012-13 season, LeBron James with the Miami Heat. Again, arguably peak LeBron. His efficiency was off the charts. He was a first-team level defender. The Heat were a juggernaut.
And he
received 120 of 121 votes.
Unbelievable. And the spoiler that time.
A writer named Gary Washburn of the Boston Globe.
A Boston writer voting against a LeBron-led Miami team. I'm shocked. That sounds suspicious.
Laughs. Well, Washburn swore up and down it wasn't bias. He cast his vote for Carmelo Anthony.
Mello. So Carmelo Anthony got one first-place vote, denying LeBron a unanimous MVP. What was the logic there?
Washburn's logic was very similar to Hickman's. He argued that the Knicks winning 54 games and their division title that year was entirely due to Melo's scoring, whereas the Heat were this super team that would make the playoffs, regardless of LeBron.
I'm sorry, that just feels like overthinking it to an absurd degree. If you take the best player in the world off the court, that's the most value lost, period. Washburn overthought it.
It just highlights how subjective the voting can be. You have 121 people, and all it takes is one person trying to be smart or different to ruin a historical moment.
It's wild. But there are other anomalies that are even more statistically bizarre. For example, the idea of winning without making the playoffs. Wait, I thought that was impossible. If your team is bad, you don't win MVP. That's like rule number one.
Generally, that is the golden rule. If you aren't winning, your stats are considered empty calories. But there is one and only one exception in the history of the award.
Who was it?
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, again in the 1975-76 season. He is the only player to win the award despite his team missing the playoffs entirely.
How good was he that year to overcome that? Or how bad was the rest of the league?
A little bit of both. The Lakers went 40-42 that season. Not terrible, but not a playoff team in the West. But Kareem averaged 27.7 points, 16.9 rebounds, and 4.1 blocks. He was a complete force of nature.
But the team missed the playoffs.
And remember, this was the player vote era.
Ah, right. That's the key. The players didn't care about the standings as much. They just knew they couldn't stop him.
Exactly. The players respected the individual dominance. If the media had been voting in 1976, Kareem probably doesn't win that award. They would have penalized him for the team's record.
Speaking of standings, there's usually a benchmark, right? Like, you got to win 50 games to even be in the conversation.
That is the unwritten rule, the rule of thumb. If you want to be MVP, your team usually needs to win 50 games. However, since that 1975-76 Kareem season, 3 players have defied this, if we exclude lockout-shortened seasons.
Okay, who are the modern outliers?
Moses Malone did it twice, actually, in 1978-79 and 1981-82. He was just such a dominant rebounding machine on okay-ish teams that they gave it to him.
A force of will?
Then, much more recently, Russell Westbrook in 2016-17.
The triple-double season, of course.
Correct. The historical magnitude of averaging a triple-double, something we hadn't seen since Oscar Robertson in the 60s, it just outweighed the fact that the Thunder were a pretty mediocre team. The narrative of he is doing the impossible took over.
It was a story you couldn't ignore. And the third one...
Nikola Jokić in the 2021-22 season.
The Joker.
His team was completely decimated by injuries to their second and third best players, but he dragged them to a respectable record with advanced stats that were simply breaking the computers. The analytics community basically said he was having one of those impactful seasons ever, regardless of wins.
So it's rare, but it can happen when the individual performance is just so undeniable, so historic, that you have to reward it. What about age? Who are the extremes on the timeline?
On the young end of the spectrum, we have Derrick Rose. He won the award in 2011 at age 22.
22? I was barely figuring out how to do my own laundry at 22. He was the most valuable player of the entire National Basketball Association.
It was that incredible explosion of athleticism with the Bulls. He felt like the future of the league. Sadly, of course, injuries completely derailed that trajectory.
Such a shame. And on the other end, who's the old man of the MVP mountain?
The oldest winner is Karl Malone, who won his second MVP in 1999 at age 35.
35? That's just pure old man strength.
That's what happens when you spend 20 years lifting weights in a barn in rural Utah.
Incredible. What about rookies? Has a rookie ever walked into the league and just taken the trophy right away?
It's nearly impossible. The learning curve in the modern NBA is just way too steep. It hasn't happened in over 50 years. Only 2 players have ever done it.
Only
Wilt Chamberlain in 1959-60 and Wes Unseld in 1968-69.
Wilt and Wes. That's it. So if you're a rookie aiming for MVP, good luck. You're fighting all of history.
It's a testament to how difficult that transition from college or overseas to the NBA usually is. But speaking of transitions, we have to talk about the biggest shift in the profile of the MVP winner over the last 30 years.
The globalization of the game.
Exactly.
This is a huge topic. If you look at the list of winners from the 80s and 90s, it's all American-born players. Magic, Bird, Jordan, Barkley, Malone. But now, the map has been completely redrawn.
It really started with Hakeem Olajuwon in 1994. He is considered the first international winner of the award.
Now, there's a little bit of nuance there, right? Because he played for Team USA.
There is. Hakeem was born in Nigeria, but he played his college ball at the University of Houston, and he became a naturalized U.S. citizen in 1993. However, the NBA categorizes him as the pioneer of international MVPs because his formative basketball years were outside the traditional U.S. system.
So Hakeem basically kicks the door open. Who are the other players who walked through it?
Well, the list is fascinating because it represents so many different corners of the world and so many different styles of play. After Hakeem, you have Tim Duncan.
Now, Duncan is another one with an asterisk for some people.
He is, and it's a fair point.
Yeah.
He played for Team USA, and he is a U.S. citizen, but he was born in the U.S. Virgin Islands and famously grew up as a competitive swimmer. The NBA counts him in their international tally.
Okay, so Duncan, then who?
Then you have Steve Nash.
Captain Canada.
Born in South Africa, raised in British Columbia, Canada, a 2-time winner. And think about Nash. He wasn't a physical freak. He beat you with skill, with passing, with shooting. That signaled a real change in what an international MVP could look like.
He changed the game. And then Dirk.
Then Dirk Nowitzki from Germany.
He one-legged fadeaway. An unguardable shot from another continent.
And then after Dirk, we hit the recent wave. This is where the dam doesn't just leak, it breaks completely.
Yes, the last decade has been a takeover.
You have Giannis Antetokounmpo from Greece, Nikola Jokić from Serbia, Joel Embiid from Cameroon, who, like Olajuwon, became a U.S. citizen later in his career, and finally, the current holder, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from Canada.
It's actually incredible when you look at that recent timeline. The last 6-7 years have been completely dominated by international players. Why do you think that is? What happened?
It's a huge topic of debate in basketball circles. Many experts point to the differences in youth development systems.
How so?
In Europe and other parts of the world, young players often join professional academies where they learn fundamentals, footwork, passing, shooting, team concepts from a very young age.
It's more structured.
Very. In the U.S., the AAU system, for all its benefits, often prioritizes raw athleticism and one-on-one highlight reel play over those fundamentals.
So while the American kids are learning to dunk and cross people up, the European kids are learning how to actually play the game of basketball.
In a reductive sense, yes. Look at Jokić. He famously can't jump over a phone book, but his understanding of angles and timing and leverage is at a genius level. Look at Luka Doncic, who hasn't won MVP yet but is always in the mix. The skill level of the international big men specifically has, for now, surpassed that of the American bigs.
It's not just a blip. It really is a takeover. Yeah. If you look at the stretch starting with Giannis, then Jokić winning 3 times 2021, 22, and 24, plus Embiid and now SGA, the American-born superstar has been shut out of the top spot for years.
It signals a fundamental change. The global game has arrived, and it's at the summit. The best players in the world are no longer exclusively coming from Chicago or New York or L.A. They're coming from Sombor, Serbia, and Athens, Greece, and Toronto, Canada.
It's a different league now. So we've got international dominance, we've got changing voters, changing trophies, but there is one more massive change that was introduced very, very recently. The lawyer era of the NBA, as I like to call it.
Plus the CBA era.
The 65-game rule.
This is critical. This is the new machinery that every player, fan, and voter has to understand. To understand the 65-game rule, you have to go back to the mid-2010s. Science really entered the locker room.
The analytics of the body.
Exactly. Teams started hiring biometric staff who said, hey, the human body isn't meant to play 82 games on concrete at this intensity. It's suboptimal.
Yeah.
So we entered the era of load management.
Which logically makes perfect sense for a franchise that's trying to protect its $200 million asset. You want them healthy for the playoffs.
Of course.
But for the fan who buys the ticket.
It was a disaster for the product. Imagine a family saving up $600 to go see the Clippers play. They drive 2 hours, pay for parking, get the kids a jersey, and then find out Kawhi Leonard is sitting out not because he's hurt, but because it's a Tuesday and they want to rest him for a bigger game on Thursday.
It broke the social contract with the fans.
It completely broke the contract of I pay money, you play basketball.
Sure.
The NBA realized they were selling a product that wasn't being delivered consistently.
And their broadcast partners were probably furious.
They were. So in the collective bargaining agreement that took effect with the 2023-24 season, the league and the Players Association drew a hard line in the sand. The 65-game rule wasn't just about awards. It was a desperate attempt to reestablish that social contract.
So what does it say exactly?
The rule states, to be eligible for MVP and other major awards like All-NBA teams, a player must appear in at least 65 games.
No exceptions. I mean, what if you play 64 games and you average 50 points and cure a disease at halftime of every game?
You are ineligible. The rule is strict. And there is, of course, some very important fine print. A game only officially counts towards that total if the player's on the court for at least 20 minutes.
Ah, so you can't just check in for 5 seconds, commit a foul, wave to the crowd, and leave to keep your streak alive.
Correct. They thought of that loophole and closed it. However, there are very narrow exceptions. 2 near misses, where a player plays between 15 and 19 minutes, can count toward the 65.
Okay, so that helps a little for nights where maybe you twist an ankle early in the game or get into foul trouble.
Exactly. There are also protections for legitimate season-ending injuries. If you've played 62 games and then suffer an injury that is certified to end your season, you might still be eligible.
I see.
And there's a vague clause for bad faith circumstances, which is likely to prevent teams from benching healthy players against their will to sabotage their award chances, or, more importantly, their contract bonuses tied to those awards.
But the big picture, the main takeaway is, availability is now a legal requirement for greatness. It's not just a nice-to-have on your resume.
It completely changes the strategy. You cannot just be the best player on a permanent basis anymore. You have to be the best player who is also durable enough to be out there for most of the season. It forces the stars to be on the floor.
And we saw the impact immediately in its first season.
Instantly. Players who might have sat out before were playing through nagging injuries in March and April just to hit that 65 number.
Which, as a fan, I kind of love because I get to see them play. But it definitely adds a massive hurdle for guys who are naturally more injury-prone. Joel Embiid lost his chance at a repeat MVP specifically because of this rule.
He did. He was having a historic, maybe even better season than his first MVP year. He got hurt, fell below the 65-game threshold, and was instantly and officially removed from the conversation. It redefines value to explicitly include availability.
So let's bring this all back home then. We've gone from Bob Pettit in 1956 receiving a trophy voted on by his fellow players.
A simple process.
All the way to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in 2025 receiving the Michael Jordan Trophy under these strict CBA-mandated game count rules voted on by a global media panel.
It's a journey from a peer-reviewed acknowledgement, a simple handshake among giants, to a global media spectacle governed by complex eligibility criteria and weighted mathematics.
The trophy has changed names. The voters have changed professions. The winners have changed nationalities. But the core idea remains the same, doesn't it? Who owned the lead this year?
Exactly. Who defined the season? That's what we're all trying to answer.
So here is the thought I want to leave you with, the thing for you to chew on as you watch this season unfold. We now have a system where the media votes, the fans have a tiny say, and the rule book demands you play at least 65 games.
Mm-hmm.
Are we seeing a fundamental shift where availability is becoming valued even higher than peak performance? If the next Michael Jordan comes along and plays 60 unbelievable games but averages 45 points, under these rules, he can't be MVP.
He's not even on the ballot.
Are we okay with that? Does the award still measure the best player, or is it now officially measuring the best available player?
That is the question of this new era. And I think the answer to that is going to define the next decade of NBA history.
Thanks for taking the deep dive with us. We'll see you next time.